Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining in another week. Have a great show planned for you here today. Later on, I'll have with me Ed Pastilong, former director of athletics at West Virginia University. We'll be talking all about his tenure there, some of the things that he's seen through the years, and what maybe he's most proud of there. But first, we'll start with some of our usual features. I'm going to start off with a legal tip. This legal tip is particularly, I think, important, and everybody should listen to. That's stop for school buses. I've seen too many instances recently where a school bus is stopped to let a child out or let a child onto the bus, and people don't understand that not only do you have to stop if you're behind the school bus, but also if you're coming in the oncoming lane, approaching the school bus. People don't realize that sometimes kids have to cross the street to go around to get into the school bus or to get off the school bus. Everyone needs to stop. Let those kids get to where they need to go safely. Unfortunately, over the years in my law practice, I've had a couple of cases where kids have been injured getting on or off the school bus because people didn't stop or didn't stop far enough away, and they caused a problem there and injured a child. So please be aware of that. Remember, stop plenty enough distance back that you're not anywhere near that bus, that the kids can pass, and then don't start going just because you see a kid cross the street and think, oh, okay, it's okay to go now. There could be another kid that's coming from the back of the bus or dropped his lunchbox or whatever it may be. Wait until that bus has put its sign back in and started moving again itself. Once that bus is going again itself and the sign has gone back in, then you know it's okay to go again. And even then, start going slowly because you know there are kids around. It's almost like deer. You know, if you see one deer crossing the street, here comes another one. Kids are kind of the same way. When you see a kid around, there's chances are there's another one around somewhere. And also, you just don't know where that kid's going to go or where they may walk to because they are little kids. So please be aware of that. Don't want to see kids get hurt. Talk about some local news here. Wheeling City Manager Bob Heron arrested for DUI last weekend, apparently after spending time at the Mountain East Conference basketball tournament at West Banco Arena. And, I want to comment on this because is driving while intoxicated okay? No, of course it's not. It's against the law. It's not acceptable. People can get hurt, and people can get hurt badly. And I've seen some very tragic situations. But people do make mistakes also. Some more serious than others, some very serious mistakes. But the reason that I want to comment on it is that don't be so quick to judge and attack. And I've seen so much judging and attacking this week, whether it be just listening to people as I'm out and about, seeing it on social media. And that's going to lead me right into my quote this week, which is, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. And of course, that quote comes directly from Jesus himself. I don't think maybe it's the first time I've ever actually used a quote from Jesus on this show, but I'm going to use it this week. That's going to be our quote this week. And the reason that I say that, and it's particularly appropriate during Lent, is that we're supposed to be forgiving. We're supposed to say, hey, let us help you back up when you get knocked down. So many people want to beat folks when they're down, and I think that social media has made it even worse. I've talked about that in the past on this show. So many times now people say things online that they would never say in person, or want to jump out and attack. It's got to stop at some point. And maybe if just one person at a time, we stop the attacking on social media. We say, you know what, this person has just got kicked down to the ground, maybe through their own fault, maybe through their own choices. But is that the time to now step on their throat and really put it to them? No, it's a time to say, you know what, let me help you back up. Let's see what we can do to help you. Should there be consequences for people's actions? Absolutely. There should be consequences. But it doesn't mean that we need to pile on. So please be thoughtful of that. When somebody has already done something that they probably are regretting, that they're thinking this is the worst thing that I've done, this is a terrible thing I've done, the last thing they need is people piling on and attacking them even more. So if we can do that, I think we can at least take some steps toward being a more civil society, being a better people, and really doing what we're supposed to be doing. If you think about those things of, let he who's without sin cast the first stone, forgiveness, all the things that we should be thinking about, particularly during this Lenten season. So just my thoughts for what it's worth. I make plenty of mistakes myself, and sometimes I'm too slow to forgive when I should. And this is just one of the situations reminding me that, hey, we all need to do those things better. We are going to take a break, but when I come back, I will have with me former WVU Director of Athletics, Ed Pastilong. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Recommended by the highest authorities. Danoon Lumber.
Looks like a bad one's coming. Yeah. Right?
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week's certainly no different. I have with me former Director of Athletics at West Virginia University, Ed Pastilong, Moundsville native, here back in the Ohio Valley to do the show, and I appreciate you being here, Mr. Pastilong.
Jamie, I've had more fun the last half hour here in the studio than you can believe. I run into Robinson, and he's telling me about his father, who was Bucky Robinson. He and I played football together at Moundsville High School, and that led on to a bunch of Moundsville stories, and so it's been extremely interesting. And then being here with my buddy Mitch Bingle, and but anytime you come back to the Valley, it's exciting. And my wife Mona, who is from Roberts Ridge in Moundsville, and when I told her I was coming up here, she said, "Oh my goodness," she was excited as well.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it's great to have you here.
And you know, I've had the opportunity to work part-time at West Liberty University, and that brings me back to the Valley more often. And it's a wonderful institution, and so it's just a nice place. You got great sports and great people and a nice area.
Well, you know, one of the things that's really, I think, fun for, over the last several decades for people in this valley to see is someone from Moundsville like yourself, go on to become the Director of Athletics at our state's university, West Virginia University, and to all the things that you were able to accomplish there. But this, I think for even kids, like me growing up as I was in the 80s and early 90s to see, hey, look at this is really cool, somebody from Moundsville. So, it really had to be something for you to reach that position.
Well, first of all, the Moundsville, the high school there and the coaches and the people there were just outstanding. And then to have an opportunity to get a scholarship to go to West Virginia University and play football, and then going out and coaching a little bit of high school, and then coaching a little bit of college football at Salem College near Clarksburg, West Virginia, and then getting the call to come back and work at your alma mater, West Virginia University. And I worked there for 20 years before becoming athletic director. Then I was athletic director for 22 years, and then I felt it was time to retire. But boy, that first year after you retire is pretty hard on you.
Oh,
There's
I'm
nothing
sure.
to do. You can only go fishing so many times. But I had a great call from West Liberty University to come back to the area and work part-time with them. And President Greiner and Jason Kegler and people like that, and our coaches there at West Liberty University. What an outstanding university. And it's been exciting for Mona and I to have that chance to come back.
Well, you're right. Some fantastic people there at West Liberty, and to be able to draw upon your experience that you had, for all those years, to be able to, give to one of the local universities here in the area is I know, fantastic. And let's talk about some of the accomplishments there at WVU. I mean, people may forget that, you kind of guided the school into the Big East, which was a big deal at the time for the university. I mean, you talk about the Big East in those days and all that it was. With you look at the basketball with the the Georgetowns and the Villanovas and Syracuses and teams like that, and then the football rivalries with Pitt and Syracuse. I mean, had to be really exciting. But what are the dynamics of being involved in getting the university in a conference like that?
I think you described that exceptionally. All of a sudden, we were in the Southern Conference years ago, and then we were a major independent along with the Pitt and the Penn States and so on. And then the Big East Basketball Conference began, and West Virginia University, we were fortunate enough to work our way into that. One of the reasons was a great fan base and a really outstanding, respected institution, West Virginia University. So we got into the Big East Basketball Conference, and we were playing in Madison Square Garden, which was exceptional. And then we had the opportunity, we, universities, the Pitt, the Penn States, the West Virginia universities, the Virginia Tech, the Boston colleges, to form our own Big East All Sports Conference. And in my opinion, was one of the most respected and competitive conferences in the United States. Think about that. We're playing in Madison Square Garden for our basketball championships, and then the Northeast has 28% of the population watching the media, whether it be television, listening to the radio, and so on. So that particular alignment for our university, I think, was one of the major, not only for athletics, but for exposing our university and our state in general.
You know, as I mentioned, you know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so that was right in the heart of when I'm a kid and I'm growing up, and you know, so much excitement. And you know, now it's just hard for me to get excited about playing Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. I mean, some fine schools, but you know, in terms of geographically, just really hard, I think, for the fan base, at least for me, to get excited.
It's tough to play an away game when every time you get across that Mississippi River.
Yeah.
And when we had that Big East All Sports put together, it was wonderful. And you know, one of the universities I left out was Notre Dame was associated with us, and that was outstanding. And I got to tell you about Dick Rosenthal, who was the athletic director at that time. And I ran into Dick Rosenthal at a athletic directors convention, and he had talked to me about a particular golf course in Morgantown, Lakeview, that he wanted to play. Well, I said, well, guess what, Dick, I'll go ahead and accommodate you for that. So we brought him into Morgantown for an entire weekend, and he visited our university, and the more we talked, and we had a little motive in mind also. We put together a football series with them, which was outstanding, and so when you mentioned that, it kind of reminded me of it.
Well, I got to go to those games, and you know, both in South Bend when I was a student there. The '97 game was my first year of law school at Notre Dame, so that was a lot of fun for me. A lot of family and friends were out and visited, and I wrote a really great article that appeared in the student paper about it, and then once I graduated, being able to have my friends from Notre Dame come back out to Morgantown and see the game there, that was fun too. So, but a lot of excitement, I think, for both schools, but particularly for West Virginia University to have Notre Dame come to Morgantown. It was a lot of fun.
But that Big East All Sports Conference and playing in New York City in the largest indoor athletic venue in the world, that being Madison Square Garden, that was quite an experience, and it was unbelievable, the distribution of the tickets for that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh my goodness, the pressure, and those were very exciting years. And we had some pretty good teams at that time, which made it even
no doubt
that much better.
We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue talking with Ed Pastilong about some of the coaches he hired and some that he saw maybe leave during the course of his tenure at WVU. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
You earned it. Let us help you save it. Belmont Savings Bank. Focused on your future.
Hi, I'm Mitch Vingle with Wheelhouse Creative, but you may remember me from my days covering the Mountaineers. Every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, I'll be hosting Off the Record, a series of sports shows featuring the very best personalities. And don't forget, Thursday is Burger Night at Generations. Check out their delicious hamburgers and their famous pierogies. And remember, it's all off the record.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest this week, former WVU Director of Athletics, Ed Pastilong. And, you know, Mr. Pastilong, you know, talking about, you know, we're talking about the Big East days and things like that. And when you think about those Big East days, you know, also some great coaches. And you had the opportunity and did bring in Rich Rodriguez to be, you know, the head football coach, and, you know, had something in common with you, Salem guy. At one point he'd been, been at Salem. And so, you know, what goes into hiring a coach and figuring out, like, hey, who's the right person for this job? Because you hired Rich Rodriguez, you hired Bob Huggins. You talk about guys like Bill Stewart, and then going down to even some of the Olympic sports that people forget, people that are still there, Nikki Izzo-Brown, Joe Hammond with the rifle team, Mike Carey with the women's basketball. I mean, these people are still there and wildly successful, but what goes into getting that right coach?
Well, there are about 4 or 5 really key things as a Division I athletic director has to make sure that he or she gets right. And the hiring of a head football, basketball, or any head coach ranks up there as the most important responsibility that you have. And of course, Don Nealon coached there forever, and he was having success. And I became athletic director. I tried to talk him into staying in forever, but he was ready to retire. And so all of a sudden, we had the opportunity to bring in a other head coach, and we looked nationally, and we spoke to many coaches. And at the end of the day, we found out that there was a gentleman right down the road at Marion County named Rich Rodriguez who was really suited for that particular job. He had been a walk-on at WVU's football team, earned a scholarship, and became a regular player for the Mountaineers. And then he had gone out and he had coached in some major universities. And so he had experience. And the more I spoke with him, the more I became impressed with him. So we hired him, and I thought after that first year I may have to be looking for other employment because he only won 1 game. But from that second year on, he started winning, and we had great success. And then unfortunately, he went on to the University of Michigan, and there was a second opportunity to hire a coach. And I'll be honest with you, I always liked to look within our state and within our area first. And so we interviewed many coaches. And right down in Wetzel County was a gentleman by the name of Billy Stewart from New Martinsville who had coached in professional football, who had coached under many very successful, prominent head Division I coaches. And we brought Billy in and interviewed Billy. And he's one of the most dynamic, enthusiastic people that I ever encountered. So we hired Billy, and fortunately he won. In fact, he holds the record for the winningest Division I coach the WVU ever had. So that worked out good. We began women's soccer at WVU, and we didn't have a soccer field. And so we went down to West Virginia Wesleyan and hired a young lady, Nikki Izzo-Brown. And her enthusiasm was unbelievable, and she began our program along with a lot of help from the various administrators within our department. And then we built a soccer field, and Nikki Izzo-Brown is still with us, and she is one of the winningest soccer coaches and one of the winningest coaches in the United States. She's an outstanding person.
She was here last year for she was the guest speaker at the YMCA's Light of the Valley luncheon, and I was so impressed with her. And just as you said, her enthusiasm, but that's one of the things that seemed to be a common thread was, you were able to find these people that had West Virginia ties in some way, whether they grew up here, whether they coached here previously. Then you get a Bob Huggins, and guy that's I think now the 4th winningest active coach in the country, or just successful in so many Sweet 16s and all that type of thing. Having a tough year this year, but able to get these folks that have West Virginia ties to come back and be at the university, I think is really, one of your legacies when you look at it.
Well, again, I think it's one of the most important things that an athletic director's responsibility is, and that is to bring the right coach in. There are a lot of good coaches out there in the world of athletics, but to find the one that would be most suited for your particular institution, that's the key. And I was thinking in terms of, we went through several lady basketball coaches, and our program was okay, but we weren't having great success. And I got a call from a gentleman in Salem, West Virginia, and I had coached football at Salem University years ago, and this gentleman worked with me and taught with me, and he said, "Ed, I've got a coach here that is our men's basketball coach, and I think he would be exceptional." And he said, "That is Mike Carey." So I said, "I'd like to meet Mike secretly and have a little conversation to make sure he's interested in doing this particular assignment." So I said, let's meet at the Holiday Inn in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Well, it just so happened that particular day the Clarksburg Lions Club was meeting. So it was in the paper the next morning that we were interviewing Mike Carey for our ladies and our women's basketball coach. But we hired Mike, and you can see the success that women's program is having right now. So that was a hire that I was just so proud of. But hiring those particular people was very important. Let me go to Bobby Huggins. Bobby Huggins, it's interesting. Bobby, his enthusiasm, Bobby had at one point, and probably now could coach any college area that he wants to in the nation because of his success. But he wanted to come back to West Virginia University. And I can remember when the opportunity came, I called Bobby. And I said, Bobby, there's an opportunity for you to come back here, and I'd like to explore it if you're interested. I thought he was going to jump through the telephone. He was so excited to return, and the success has shown by his enthusiasm.
Well, no doubt, and your mark on West Virginia University athletics in our state is still showing through today, and certainly commend you for it, and really appreciate all you've done for the university in our state, and really appreciate being here today on the show.
I love the Valley.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Good luck to you with all that you continue to do, and best wishes to you and your wife.
Thank you.
We need to take a break. When I come back, we'll be talking a little bit more sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Sometimes bad things happen to good people. At Bordas & Bordas, when we see this, we do something about it. We can't prevent bad things from happening, but we can get justice when they do.
Bordas & Bordas, fighting for justice.
We're Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration, and we're gonna save you. We've got it down to a science, an absolute state of art. We do it all, restoration, cleaning, and reconstruction. When disaster strikes, just pick up the phone. We're Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration, and we're gonna save you.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk a little more sports here, and we'll start off in Pittsburgh with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lots of activity here in the last week. First of all, Antonio Brown, no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler, traded to the Oakland Raiders for a couple of mid-round draft picks. And, you know, a lot of people talking about, man, look what the Steelers got. They didn't get much in return. And, you know, Odell Beckham Jr. goes to the Cleveland Browns, and the Giants get all kinds of stuff in return. You know, a lot of that has to do with, I think, what AB did during the course of the last several months here, and teams saying, do we really want this guy around? Look, the Steelers kind of don't want him around anymore, and should we too? So, you know, an incredible talent, but no longer will be with the Steelers, and instead now an Oakland Raider. And also Le'Veon Bell, now officially gone, signs with the New York Jets in free agency. And, you know, a lot of talk about that as well. People saying, look, he ended up taking less money than what the Steelers were offering. Not exactly the case. I mean, when you look at it and say, okay, well, they're paying him X amount of dollars per year, and the Steelers were offering Y per year, you may say, well, the Steelers were offering more. It's all about guaranteed money in the NFL. It's not like Major League Baseball contracts. When a guy like, you know, Bryce Harper, who just signed with the Phillies, signs this $300-some million contract, he's going to see all of that. That's not the case in the NFL. The NFL really has it, you know, over on these players more than any other professional sport. The money is not guaranteed. So when, you know, they throw out these numbers like, oh, they offered him $70 million. Well, no, they didn't. You know, they offered him, you know, $70 million over so many years, but, you know, there's only so much guaranteed there. And when you look at what the Steelers were guaranteeing Le'Veon Bell, it was very, you know, in relative terms, very low, like $10 million guaranteed out of that 70. Whereas, you know, he got $35 million or something like that guaranteed from the Jets. So much more on the guarantee. And why that's important, particularly to a running back, is that running backs don't last real long. They can be injured. They can have other things happen. And so that guaranteed money is what's really important to these guys, not just the number that says, oh, it was $70 million. That doesn't matter so much. It only matters if you play out the entire contract. They don't cut you. You don't get hurt, all of those things. So he didn't really go for less money. He went for more guaranteed money, which is what he ended up getting. Jesse James gone, tight end, to the Detroit Lions. Now, McDonald's still around at tight end, and, he was starting to become the guy if he wasn't, completely the guy. But still a big loss there. Jesse James has been a big part of that offense, and Marcus Gilbert sent to the Arizona Cardinals. So, big changes there on the offensive side of the ball. 4 guys that have been really key components to the Steelers over the past several years, no longer with the team. So the team will have to start to rebuild now, and they've already started that. Signed Dante Moncrief, receiver who's most recently played with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not the big flashy numbers that maybe AB had, but, I think the Steelers are looking to say, okay, Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be the new AB. Now, who can be the support guys on top of that? Of course, they're going to be counting on James Washington, who they drafted last year out of Oklahoma State, to be a deep threat. Eli Rogers still around. Of course, guys playing bit roles there, here and there. So interesting there. But also on the defensive side of the ball, re-signing Anthony Chickillo. And then also now getting another corner out of Kansas City, which I think is a big pickup in Allen from Kansas City. Need someone to be opposite Joe Hayden because Artie Burns just has not shown that he's got the ability to get it done. So good to pick up another corner. I think we'll see some more activity from the Steelers. The Steelers have always been really a draft team, accumulate guys through the draft. But the one thing the Steelers better recognize is that these young guys aren't necessarily just looking for money anymore. They want to be loved. I mean, and that's this generation. That's this millennial generation. I see it in the workforce myself. They care about titles. They care about being cared about. They care about love more than they even care about the money. They care about the money too. But so the Steelers better recognize that, because whether you like it or not, they're going to fall behind, because the Cleveland Browns are, going out and getting at it in free agency and in the draft. Major League Baseball only a couple of weeks away, and the Pirates have announced their opening day starter will be Jamison Tyone. He'll start against the Reds on March 28th, just a couple weeks away here now. And then Chris Archer will start the home opener against the Cardinals on April 1st. That'll be a day game in Pittsburgh on Monday, April 1st. And the NHL regular season's winding down the next month. The top 3 teams in each division make the playoffs, and then 2 wild cards in each conference. And the Pittsburgh Penguins are in the mix. They're hovering right around that 2nd, 3rd spot in the division, and they should get in the playoffs. But they look, Crosby, Malkin, and crew aren't getting any younger. I mean, Crosby's 31 now. He's had some injury issues in his career. How many more chances will there be? He's had several Stanley Cup wins in his career, but every year with the type of talent they have, they've got a shot at it. And this year I think is no different. The Penguins will have a shot if they can get hot at the right time, and a lot of playoff hockey is who can be hot at the right time. Hopefully that'll be the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. That's all the time we have this week. I really appreciate former Mountaineer Athletic Director Ed Pastilong being here. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next time on the Jamie Bordas Show.